Hi, this is Sue Greenwald with Awakened Stories. I'm here today with Peta Machen from Australia, my new Jedi friend. Hi, Peta.
Hi, how you going, Sue?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Good. So we're doing a video today called Becoming Awakened, which is kind of like an overview of Peta's life story and, like any trauma she may have had or whatever might have influenced her to become more spiritually awakened. So anything you want to share, of course, is welcome. So can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, whether you had like heavy religious upbringing or if your parents were spiritual and taught you about that, like kind of how was your household when you grew up?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sue. So growing up as a young child, I had a really beautiful upbringing. I had two great parents, an older sister and a younger brother, a very close-knit family in a
Yeah.
small country town in Queensland here. So I had a really beautiful start to my life. We weren't religious, however, my grandparents were Anglican Christians, I believe. So there was the odd attendance or Sunday school,
Right. Yeah.
people getting christened, like cousins and things like that. And yeah, like I guess Christmas time, every now and then, mum and dad would be, they would feel they had to take us along to church for grandma and granddad, and we'd be in the nativity play and
Yeah.
everything,
Yep.
us
Yep.
kids, me
Yep.
and all my cousins. So there was a little bit of religious influence
Right.
in my younger days, but not directly from my parents. So
Right.
yeah, and I
Right.
I definitely did feel close to God, which is something that grew in me
Right.
sort of moving up to the age of 9, where it kind of stopped. Yeah,
Right. Right. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So it wasn't like something it was like really like pushed upon you or you had to do or believe in, but it was like kind of like casually in the background, it sounds like.
It was casually in the
Yeah.
background. My parents
Yeah.
are both agnostic,
Yeah.
so they didn't really believe in anything. So they didn't see the harm in allowing me to be
Right.
exposed
Right.
to some of these things.
Right.
For me personally, seeing a lot of my cousins and my sister get christened, I kind of grew with the want and an urge for that for myself, right?
Mhm.
So I I've always been quite spiritual. I used to go out and dance and talk to my plants and touch the trees and talk to, I guess, the
Right.
spirit of
Right.
nature all the
Mhm.
time. I felt very close to the spiritual realm. And when I was about 9 years old, we moved to Brisbane. My dad got some new work, which was overseas. So he was overseas a lot. So kind of, shook everything up for us, moved from a small country
Right.
town to like
Right.
city of Brisbane.
Right.
And I started looking for God more and more. And what happened was I ended up joining at my school. We had like a lunchtime RE session, which is like religious education, but you could go on your lunch break. Yeah, it was called the Rainbow Club. And we
Oh.
got to eat treats and read the Bible and watch videos about Jesus. And I
Yeah.
loved it. I used to go
Yeah.
every Thursday and Friday.
Okay.
Um, and it got to the point where I was praying every night. I was, always wishing everyone well, even my enemies. When you're 9, you've got a few issues going on in the classroom, you got to set some people straight through God's
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Uh, so I got to the point where I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to get christened. I want to get baptized, you know. And they said no. They said no. Yeah, yeah. And I only made this connection yesterday talking to Eva,
Yeah.
San
Yeah.
Diego. Yeah, because we were talking about baptism and being
Right.
christened. And
Right.
I went, holy moly, I just realized where I lost my connection. Because I lost my way. And what happened at that moment when my parents rejected me asking to be christened is I felt like I'd been rejected by God and that I
Mm.
was not worthy or evil.
Right.
And that really continued on for a very long time in my life. I separated myself at that point from
Right.
Source.
Mhm.
And that sort of led to a lot of darkness in my life.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, self-sabotaging behavior and basically just testing, why am I here? What's my purpose? If I'm
Right.
not one of yours, who am I?
Right.
I
Right.
was really rebellious in that way. I think a lot of us were brought up questioning us people in this, this
Right.
space, spiritual
Right.
space.
Right.
And I certainly did. And, yeah, I definitely took some darker paths. Yeah, so for me, parents got divorced, grandma died, alcohol became a big thing in my life at about the age of
Right,
15. I started
right.
drinking heavily.
Hmm.
Yeah, lost my virginity at a very young age, way too young. Um, I was taking drugs, and that didn't really finish completely until quite recently, a few years ago. It
Right,
sort of kicked
right,
off again,
right,
So, yeah, I've had some really, really nasty experiences because I invited that low frequency into my life and
right.
I turned my back on the light for so long. So, yeah, I'm sure you can read between the lines as to the type of experiences I had as a young woman, going out to nightclubs alone all the time, just not being very smart, not looking after myself. I
Right,
didn't have much self-love or
right,
self-respect.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
And so you're kind of tracing it back to that point, but also think of you were younger and your parents got divorced, and
yeah,
that you probably didn't process that very well, and
that's true.
that's how went wild, if you will. You know what I mean? You were feeling yeah, rebellious and
Yeah,
angry, and you just didn't care,
definitely.
probably. Yeah, yeah,
Definitely. Now, with my parents' divorce, now that was a big one for me,
yeah,
Sue, because what happened was I am somewhat at fault for that because what happened, I'm not at fault. I know that now, after a long time of processing it, but I was the one who discovered that my father was having an affair. So I saw
yeah,
photos.
yeah,
Yeah. And so I kept that to myself for about a year and I self-harmed and I was a very,
oh,
very sad young woman.
yeah,
Heavy burden.
right, right,
And then eventually I told mum and they separated. And so yeah, that
right,
was rough time.
yeah. Especially at your age, whatever that was, it had to be hard
15,
because
16, yeah.
you're containing a really big important secret, and that had to really kind of
Yeah.
mess you up a little bit. So don't beat yourself up. And so you were exploring different ways to get your feelings out.
Yeah, let's say
Yeah,
that. Let's say
yeah,
that. Yeah, there was
yeah,
definitely a bit of numbness there, and me
yeah,
just like trying to like feel something,
yeah,
anything, because nothing felt good.
yeah,
Which is just, it's not true. Like I've been so blessed throughout my life in many
right,
ways. I've never been homeless. I've
right,
never not had a loving parent in my life, But I just felt, yeah, a lot of pain from that. So
yeah,
for me, I got I met my ex-husband at around age 18. So I was very young. He was 35 at the time. So seeking a daddy figure, I'm sure we can all put two and two together there. I lacked confidence, I lacked self-love, and I desperately wanted someone to tell me what to do and
right,
to just direct me because I
right,
just
right,
had nothing within myself, no confidence in who I
right,
was or what I was doing.
right,
And it was a good relationship for a little while. There was learning that took place, but there was also a lot of stagnation. I had two beautiful children with him, and it got to a certain point where the stagnation, I recognized that I was not becoming myself. If anything, I was
right,
losing parts of myself because I
right,
was, I guess, lowering some of my values and morals for this
right,
person.
right,
Yeah. And I was really unhappy. My
right,
my alcoholism really kicked in, like really, really bad. There were instances where both myself and my ex weren't loyal to each other. So it was quite toxic. Yeah, the children were, for the most part, very much protected from the silliness, but
right, right.
you know, who knows? So
Yeah, yeah,
what happened was he lost his job for about one of the many times over a short period of time. And he was the main breadwinner up to that point. I was studying to be a primary school teacher. I was a stay-at-home mom and I was working part-time in a pet store. And the final time that he lost his job, I said, okay, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm gonna go and earn the money. You stay at home with the kids. Like, let's just switch it up,
right, right,
Yeah. So I went out and I got a whole bunch of tickets and licenses in the construction industry.
Oh.
Driving machinery and forklifts and hoists and electrical spotting, traffic controlling, you name it. I went out and got a whole bunch of tickets and did some, yeah, I know, right?
I didn't see that coming.
No, right? Yeah. Picture me on one of the work sites, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that and I got straight into a really high paying job after my learning. I was earning about $6,000 a week on the better weeks. So I was supporting the family. I was getting my confidence back about me. I was,
Right.
I guess, becoming really strong because you have to when you're surrounded by a whole bunch of blokes. It's a dominated industry, construction.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to really get some balls about you as a woman. So I did that, and it was a big learning curve for me. And I began standing up to myself when it came to my relationship at the time, as well as my friends.
Right.
So I was growing in confidence, my values, and just to stand on my own 2 feet.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
that kind of led me to meeting Jacob, who I'm currently with, and is the father of my second daughter, my third child. Yeah. So I met Jacob, and this guy, it was just okay. You know the movies when there's like a slow motion introduction of like two people? I've seen him like so far away. I'm standing there with my high vis on, my hair extensions, like looking all cute in my little hard hat. And here this guy just comes walking along the road, and I'm just like, who is that? Like, who is that guy? Like, who? I have to know that person. I just have to know that person. And so it kind of moved on from there where, he offered to get me on one of his job sites to get me better pay and to train me
Wow.
on one of the actual machinery there, the forklifts that I wasn't that good on. I didn't have much experience in. So yeah, I spent some time like getting to know him. And then it kind of just got to the point where I started to understand how a man treats a woman, how a man should treat a woman. There was nothing romantic there between us, but there was just this respect
Right.
and love. And I felt healed around him. Like I felt healing happening. So it got to a point where I'd come back from Taco Tuesday with some of my friends and I was driving. Yeah, I know, Taco Tuesday. We do it here in Australia too, all right?
My favorite day.
Yes, love tacos. We were driving. I was driving home from having Taco Tuesday with my friends, and my heart started racing, like racing out of my chest. And I was like, "What is this? Like, what's going on? I have to pull over. I have to pull over." And I sat there on the side of the road for about half an hour, thinking, "Okay, am I really going to do this?" And I knew in my heart I had to tell this guy that I really care for him. I don't know what to do with this. I'm married. Like he, I don't even know if he's interested in me. Like we're just friends.
Right.
And I told him, and he was really accepting of it. And then from there, it was literally, I think the next 2 days later that I told my husband, Brad, I said, I can't do this anymore. It's over. Yeah, it was rough, but we had rocky threat. He threatened to leave me that many times. Like it shouldn't have been a shock to him that it was coming, but I know it was hurtful to him at the time.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Not a nice situation for him or any of us. So that was rough because that meant I had to then decide how to navigate the situation with the children because, the little ones, right? They've been with their stay-at-home daddy for the past 6 months. And I've been the working woman. So I made the choice to leave the house with Brad and the children so they could have that consistency in their life.
Right.
And that was the hardest decision I think I've had to make is to become part-time mom. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you trusted him enough to leave the kids there. He was relatively good. Yeah, good.
He's a great dad. He's a great dad. He's just not good with women. Maybe he will be one day. I hope he finds someone. Yeah. But yeah, he's a great dad and they love him very much. So basically after that point I moved straight in with Jacob. We hadn't even been together yet. And here we go. Like next minute I'm rocking up with bags and like and we're trying to figure out how the fuck we got in this situation, and we're just soldiering on. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, such courage that this guy has. And, I couldn't believe it. He wasn't ready for a woman. He wasn't ready for instant family either, but he got it. And yeah, yeah, yeah. And Jacob is the reason I'm talking about Jacob, and I had to give you all that pretext because he's probably the main reason for my awakening.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So Jacob, when I met him, he was into a lot of what I thought were really strange things. Okay. He loved learning about mud floods and resets and the Anunnaki and the Sumerians and, ancient hidden history, spaceships, aliens, reptilians, Draco, all the things that I was like, what is this shit? Like, I like
Right.
tarot and astrology,
Right.
I stare at the stars and I believe in spirits, but I wasn't really exposed to that because I'd been in my little shell with my high school friends for 10 years and
Right.
my husband. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's sort of what started it. And for us, because it was such a shotgun start and a huge amount of responsibility dumped on Jacob, me going through really big changes and depression because I missed my children dearly.
Of course.
And we lived an hour away. So I tried to do week on, week off for a little while, where I would have them for a full week in our little apartment and take them an hour's drive to school, drive home an hour,
Oh,
same again in the afternoon. And then the following week I'd go to work, but it just wasn't working. And it became very strenuous on me and Jacob emotionally. And, we started in our time when it was just us, we started doing drugs, together and drinking a lot. And both of us have had suicidal tendencies in the past. Both of us have had depression. Both of us have, had a lot of self-sabotaging behavior in our history behind us. So these things reared their ugly heads and we weren't prepared for it, and we didn't know each other. Our connection wasn't strong enough yet. We'd only just jumped into it. This is only like, 8 months after meeting. Here
right.
we are, crazy shit going on.
Yeah.
And so that really let some darkness into our life. And there were things that happened that were really upsetting. But I guess what I would say to anyone who's going through that and sort of going down that dark path is just find the light because, the further you go down, the more you let in. And
Right.
I witnessed, Jacob actually being possessed by something that was not him. There were dark shadows in our house. We had alarms going off, fire alarms in the middle of the night. I literally heard a knock on our door in the middle of the night, and Jacob was already up. He wasn't even, and he went to the door, and then I heard him just leave for like 2 minutes, and then he came back, and it was a fully locked up. No one could have even gotten up to our little apartment area.
Right.
And that night, like I felt really strongly that, he'd let something in, and things got a little worse at that point.
Okay. Okay.
To the point where we were scared in our own home, to the point where I would say, I need to go be with the kids. I need to get away for a little while. This is too much for me. And he would be pushing me away. And then he'd start crying and say, come back, don't leave me, I'm scared. It was like that. It was this, and it was, we'd lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost a lot of weight. We weren't eating, we weren't sleeping.
Right.
It was a really, really horrible time. And it got to the point where I said, you need to quit working, because he was still trying to work. I said, you need to stop. You need to get a couple of weeks off, a month off. Tell your employee now, this has to stop, all of it. I haven't seen my children for 3 weeks because I was trying to caretake for him and get through the stuff we were trying to get through.
Right.
And we need to figure this shit out.
Right.
So we basically went off everything, including the alcohol, which we maintained for about a year solid, and we started to get into a more vulnerable state with each other, especially for him. He was able to actually become vulnerable with me and allow me to come into his heart space with love, because I think there was a huge wall there before that,
right.
From his past experiences.
It makes sense. Yeah.
And so we finally merged together, and it really felt like, holy like it's like we met each other for the first time. Really, really, like our souls just went vroom, like we needed it. Like it makes me want to cry because it was beautiful when we came to the point where we realized how much we loved each other and
Right.
needed each other.
Right.
Yeah. And so we started, getting back on track with things, you know, hugging, doing the right thing, hanging out with the kids, like getting everything back on track and planning for our future. I ended up resigning from my work just when COVID sort of really, really got crazy. I was kind of over it. There was a lot of bad influences. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was that. I mean, who wants to work, right? Yeah. So I resigned from my work. And it was around that time that Jacob and I were witnessing some really interesting phenomena. So, coming out of our crappy state, we were getting really excited about watching alien stuff and discovering stuff about, frequencies and all these wonderful things that are meant to be happening in the world, angels. We were learning about everything that was kind of intriguing and of the light mostly. There was a couple of things that probably weren't because, we were interested. But we actually saw over Brisbane City, we were sitting out on our little patio, and it was probably just west of Brisbane City. We were sitting out there one night and we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights just go straight line up. Huge, bright. It was either a UFO or many. I'm not sure. And that was the first time that we actually can recall either of us seeing one. And it was so exciting. We were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's really happening.
Yeah. And you were into that before you saw them, so that you were open to that. So that's
definitely
exciting. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a really cool experience. And after that, we started watching Stephen Greer and his C5 when you call them in. And I was calling them in. I was seeing them almost every night. Jacob, not so much, but
Okay.
yeah, so that was that was pretty great. We just basically came out of our funk and we decided to both so Jacob resigned from his work. Okay, and we were like, okay, this COVID stuff's bullshit. Let's go, let's live on the land, let's start like a permaculture community, like a hippie type community. We just wanted to get the fuck out of there.
Right.
And like live off the land and get back to our roots and get connected with Mother Earth and spirit and all the wonderful things. Right. So so naive. We quit our jobs, right? First, you don't quit your job before you buy it, right? Like that's really, yeah. pull out some of our super, pull out like all these different, like pulling money left, right, and center, every little cent that we could gather together to try and buy this property, which was out west, which is a very dry area, very barren. Just it was the only place we could really afford that had a running creek going through it, and it was really big. It's really big. So we went out there and we were so excited. We're like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to like build a farm. Like all it had was a shipping container. Okay. A little shipping container with an outside dunny, 1 bedroom. We were just going to be like a tent. I don't know what we were thinking, but we were big dreamers. So we were naive big dreamers. Yeah. Yeah. So we put an offer in and we did the deposit thing and everything. And in the end, the bank was just like, no, you can't buy that much land, with a mortgage. Like there's like limits when it's so far out.
Right.
We were devastated, absolutely devastated. So what we did was we're like, oh my God, we have no work. We're now feeling kind of broke and we're chewing into our savings, which was like a house deposit. Yeah. And we were just so lost. And so we actually ended up going out and painting my dad and my stepmom's house. She had this huge mansion, which is just like, I would like to say colonial beach house type of thing, a huge wraparound veranda. We went out and painted that thing. It took us like 2 months, man. It was so bad, but it was fun working together. That was a good experience. Don't know if it was worth it, but shouldn't work for family. I don't think it's not a good idea.
Right.
Don't do it, guys. Don't do it. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like where like I was going with that. I mean, now we were able to buy a house a couple of years later. We manifested that together. We really started working on intention. Myself, I've been very interested in intention, energy work myself. I read tarot. I've done it for years.
Right.
I've been always interested in medicinal herbs and, the energy of astrology, the sun, the moon, all the beautiful, I've always been interested in that stuff. So I sort of use my knowledge of that to try different methods, like the one where you write you write it down like 100 times a day, like exactly
Right.
what you want. The one where you listen to it
Affirmations.
before you go to sleep. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 All the different types ones,
Right.
like, putting your intention in and then burning it and going, yes,
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
anything to try and get this thing going. And
Right.
yeah, we bought this home that we're in now. And um, I had my daughter to Jacob, and she has brought such light into our life, like even more than we already had. Like, you know,
Right.
um, it's been a really beautiful experience. And she talks to me telepathically, which is really,
That's
really
so
great.
cool.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
she'll tell me sometimes, like, I'm like, oh, Ada, when are you gonna do a poo? Because I'm planning to go shopping. I'm like, when are you gonna do your poo? And she'd be like, in the car. And I'm like, she does. She does. You know? And I, yeah. Well, funny.
That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's great.
It's pretty funny. So
Right.
that's kind of like where we're at. Like, I don't know, like that's kind of my story. And, it's just evolved from there now because about 4 months ago, I discovered Smarty. So my partner and I, Jacob, we were looking at XRP, we were looking at cryptocurrencies because we were interested in this reset. We were like, what the hell's going on? What's this GCR?
Right. Right.
What's all this stuff about, And so following different YouTubers, there was like kind of like a trail of breadcrumbs left for me,
Right. Right.
being the spiritual one to actually find, I think it was a video that Salim did, that had Smarty in it. And I was like, oh, who's this? Like, who's this King John Smarty? And I'd heard him talking in that video. And I was like, oh, man, I don't know. Like, I'm not totally sold, like this guy's like, he's saying he's Jesus. I'm like, okay, okay. So I asked for confirmation that night. I was like, okay, Source, because I had gotten some connection with Source at this point. Like, this is like 4 or 5 months ago. I was feeling more, okay, I asked for confirmation. And as I drifted off to sleep, it was like a lucid dream is the only way I could explain it
Right.
because I
Right.
was wakeful, but I wasn't. I was like,
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Um, and Smarty appeared to me, right? Who, yeah, and he was wearing like a cool suit, and he just blasted me off up. Like we went up somewhere. Like I don't know if it was a ship or a planet. I have no idea, but I think a ship. And he showed me like a body, like a standing up body, and it was blue, like a luminous sort of blue color. And I could see arteries, I could see bones, I could see everything through the body, right? And he showed me, he said, this is how we heal people. And he said a command and he literally lit the body up and he said, now you try. And I did the same thing. And he's like, now done. And I'm like, done. And he's like,
Oh
all
my
right, you're
God.
done. And he's like, you're done. And then I went back into my body and I was like, the next day I emailed him. I was like, okay, just kind of experience. I'm not a weirdo, I promise. Like you came up in my dream. I don't know how to become a Jedi. How do I do it? And yeah, it was funny. And he's like, a lot of people have that kind of experience. Yeah, a lot of people have similar things to say.
Right.
Okay. He's like, watch all the Jedi sessions. Watch all the Jedi sessions. I'm not really doing many anymore because I've done so many. And he's
Right.
like, once you've done that, start practicing and working. And I'm like, all right. And I have finished my Jedi sessions and I am doing the work and I feel
So
closer to
happy.
Source than I ever have before in my
Right.
life because
Right.
Smarty, he empowers and he enables people. Like he wants us to be close to Source, to Daddy. Like
Yes.
he doesn't want to separate us and come between us and be above
Right.
us. He wants us to have that. And I've been missing that my whole life. So
Most people that you watch or you attend whatever a service or a church or whatever it might be, they want you to do what they want you to do. They're trying
yeah.
to influence you to do it their way. Of course, they need money always, and blah, 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 blah. They're not out there like research for yourself, learn for yourself. Here's the guidelines, do it. They're not like that. Or if he puts something out there, he'll say, don't believe me, go test it,
Yeah.
use your discernment or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's
That's
the
what
best
I,
thing.
yeah, because you're not blindly following somebody that's misleading you, right? Now, here's the really important thing. In the dream, what color suit was Smarty wearing?
All right. It was like a pinky purpley. I think it had like blue trim or something on it. Yeah. Is that the right answer?
I'll tell you why. In some of our Zoom calls, we've discussed what color suits he's going to be wearing. It's so funny.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
yeah,
cool. I was wearing like a white one with light blue trimming. Yeah,
yeah,
like white and gray. And I had really
yeah.
long blonde hair. I
Ooh,
mean, I looked
yeah,
pretty nice. So
yeah. I wonder if that's how your source intended
yeah.
DNA, like that's how you really should be looking. That'll be
I think
interesting.
I think
Yeah,
so. I mean,
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing.
That's an amazing dream, actually, or experience.
Yeah.
Like in my opinion, there's dreams. It's a lot of times a dream is disjointed and crazy and blah blah blah. And then you have this lucid dream, which is it's got a quality where you know it was real, you were there, and a lot of times
You
you
were
can kind of
aware.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can step out of it and watch the dream unfolding or whatever. And those are the ones I usually try to pay attention to because I'm getting information that way. So that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I agree completely. Like they're
yeah,
the ones when you're experiencing things
right,
and you have some amount of I'd like to say conscious control over what because I chose to participate, I wanted to learn.
right,
I wanted to learn what he was trying to show me. I remember
right,
feeling that. Like I wasn't, it was me, but it wasn't. I had
right.
another really cool experience as well, which was really
Yeah,
validating.
yeah.
About 2 months before I heard about Smarty, I had a dream vision, not really sure which it was at this point. It's kind of vague to me now, but I'd been looking at a lot of Tesla stuff, free energy
Mhm,
stuff,
mhm.
which I've known about for a while, but I just felt really like it was getting closer. There's a lot of talk about like patterns coming out and things like that with Nasara Jasara, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, man, just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. There must be another way. And then I had this vision. I had like this dream. And it was a blue wave taking over the world. Okay. It was like a light blue wave. And then it was like kind of engulfing a red wave, right? And then what happened was I was all of a sudden in my kitchen and the toaster popped. And I looked down and there was no power cord attached to the toaster. And
Ooh,
I told Jacob about it. I told my brother about it. I told my sister-in-law about it. I said, I had this dream. And I'm like, I don't think we need Tesla energy. I'm like, I believe all we need is source direct love, light, frequency. And that's why they're keeping us in fear. And that's why, because they don't want us to just be able to
right,
create this energy
right,
direct through source.
right.
I did also say to them at the time, I said, but how? Like, there's got to be, I didn't see a device. I didn't know how these things were getting charged. I
Right,
did see people's
right.
hearts lighting up. I saw people's hearts, just everyday people all around the world. Like, this guy was in his shed sawing something. He was like, and I was like, it was really beautiful. Anyway, then of course, finding out about Smarty about 2 months later and his source generator cubes and all the technology that he has coming for us, for the entire world, I was just like, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it well, you know that the Earth, there's natural energy in Earth on Earth, and of course, and we've harnessed it through electricity or gas or whatever we've done, but we're really doing it so we have to pay the utility companies. We're doing it
Yeah.
that way instead of the way that would be in sync with the earth. We're harming the earth with what we're doing. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited. Of course, the financial aspect is exciting too, that we won't have to pay for heat or cooling. And
That's
then we can
right.
have it as hot or as cold as we want in our house without worry. That's going to be amazing. But the
Yeah.
fact that it's so harmful for the earth and it's just horrible that what we're
Yeah.
doing, we're allowing to be done. And of course, we, the people, don't know any better, right? We don't know that
No,
there's alternative methods because we're taught isn't.
that's right. It's all that
Yeah,
hidden knowledge. I mean, they do
yeah,
say the ancient Egyptians and I think the Sumerians, they had worked out a way to draw out like the natural energy from the earth.
right,
Like, I don't know if they
right.
had crystal grids or something like that going on or whatever. Like, there was alignment that happened,
Yes,
resonance,
yeah,
frequency, probably, whatever it was, they had free energy.
Right.
So that type of stuff has been hidden and taken away from us
Right.
so that people could benefit off us, of course,
Right.
beings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what's happened. So you went through a really, like, we'll call it a dark time in your life, and that had to
Yeah.
be hard to talk about. So thank you for doing that. And
You're welcome.
but you came out through with shining colors. That's the main thing. You came through it. But you said you were interested in tarot and angels and other things. So
Yeah.
you met Jacob and he's talking about these things and you're starting to research them, and so you're kind of learning. So
Yeah.
that point seemed to be like kind of a catalyst for you where you're starting to learn, and we'll call it even remember more, like spiritual
Yeah.
and supernatural and all of that kind of knowledge,
You're
right?
right. I kind of skimmed over all that, didn't I?
Yeah.
No, there
Yeah.
was a lot there. So you're right. It was really a part of a journey of me rediscovering myself and the truth of the world.
Yeah.
And so tarot was something I was always interested in, tarot cards,
Yeah.
oracle cards, crystals, working with Mother Nature and the elements. I was always
Right.
interested in that from a young
Right.
girl. And that kind of was reignited in me,
Yeah.
and I really crunched down and I started really studying tarot. I started really understanding the way it worked. And then I started pulling in spirit guides, angels, ancestors, loving light beings to help bring messages forward, and
Right.
actually did some channeling work as well throughout my readings. So
Right.
I was gaining a connection with higher realm beings. Um, I was never actually speaking direct to source, though. I hadn't yet
Right. Right.
really made that connection. Although I do believe now, in hindsight, that a lot of the time he was just funneling information through these other,
Right.
yeah. Sometimes I'd pick up something dark. It would happen when other people had readings, especially if they had a lot of darkness in their life. I
Right.
would pick up on it, get physically ill, actually even vomit,
Mhm.
cry. I'd be shaking during readings sometimes
Right.
because there was such dense energy
Right. Right.
beings attached to them. Um, but I did my best to clear them
Right.
and work around that, and always bring light and love into my readings.
Right.
Reinforce what can we do? What's the solution? How do we change what's happening right now? Because that was the thing that I loved most about tarot and really expanding my spirituality was the cards help you question, the cards help you navigate different perspectives, the cards help you align with your truth
Right.
by seeing things through a different lens. Like they're
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
a tool for self-discovery, because you have to go into your own psyche. You've got to dig in there. You've got to dig in there to find, like, what's it trying to tell
Right.
me?
Right.
And so I really learn a lot of intuitive skills through that as well, because I'm looking at imagery. I'm listening out for signs, like yeah. Also, I would see things with my third eye sometimes. Had some interesting experiences with orbs during readings for people. I had a lot of really, yeah, beautiful experiences with my
Right.
clients.
Right.
Yeah,
It
yeah, I
sounds like
love
you're
that.
empathic and intuitive, of course. You're seeing things and you're having these experiences. And using the tarot cards like just allows you to open up a little bit more to what's out there. But what I found the problem with them is that people become reliant on them. Like, oh, you're going to meet someone or you're going to switch jobs, and then they sit around and wait for that to happen or whatever. Or they might do something that is in alignment with the reading, but not what they should be doing.
That's
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I felt that too, Sue.
yeah,
And I had really big disclaimers with my readings because I always wanted people to use their own discernment and practice
right,
that. And
right,
I when I read the cards, I always tried to make sure that there were several different answers to that question
right,
with the
right,
cards I was given and the messages I received prior to the reading, because usually I'd actually get the actual card that they told me I'd get. I'd pull it, right? So it was very synchronistic, very, very connected. But I always said to them, this is a possibility. This is an option, or this is a choice. This
right,
is not set in stone,
yeah,
and follow your heart. And I would always teach them how to listen to their intuition,
right,
how to feel into their heart space or even their gut. Some people resonate more with their
right,
gut for that intuitive knowing,
right,
not their head, not, because that you get a lot of misinformation from there. Um, but you're right about, it was something that did bother me a little bit by my readings was I
right,
did feel some people, I would always try to give them all the empowerment they could possibly have to move on and make good choices and not need me. I didn't want anyone to rely on me.
Right.
I didn't want it. I didn't need it. I'm kind of someone who's not really that keen on needy people either. I kind of get a little bit like, back up now, man, you know, like love you, but no. So I did feel some of my clients, bless them, love them dearly, but they became heavily reliant upon me. Some people I had
Yeah.
readings I did once a day for weeks, months.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa.
it was getting big.
Yeah.
Like there are some people that I know very, very well through these readings, you know, but I felt so I did feel like people were depending on me too much. And I also felt as though, you know what, I was just getting pulled away from tarot a little.
Right.
Like I was
Right.
pregnant with my daughter at the time
Yeah.
when I was sort of
Yeah.
finishing up thinking, you know, I need some time off anyway, maternity leave. Um, and I sort of felt like, you know, I don't know if this is me, if it fits anymore.
Yeah.
I was scared shitless because this was my identity now as
Yeah.
well. Like I'd
Yeah.
really grown attached to that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
my cards and this is what I
Yeah.
do. I'm a card slinger and you know, I loved it. But I was starting to feel like
Yeah.
I was starting to feel like maybe there's something I'm missing here. Maybe there's
Yeah.
something else. Like
Yeah.
I just felt like I didn't quite fit in the tarot community. I felt like I didn't quite fit in the channeling community. I didn't quite fit in like the energy work community. I didn't have a place where I felt comfortable, like it was home, like it was me being authentic, all I could be, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I stopped doing my readings. I actually tried to start an Etsy business selling like love and light t-shirts and franchise and things that I was creating, like art that I was doing, digital art.
Mhm.
It didn't go so well.
Mhm.
But that's all right. You know, I tried something new. And so what I ended up doing was I just stopped my readings and I took time with my baby. I took
Right.
like 6 months, no, less than that. It was about 3 or 4 months before
Right.
I discovered Smarty and the source directives. And from there I just went, I'm home. Like I've found it.
Right.
I fit here. This is me.
Right.
This is my space. This is my people. This is my family. This is my soul tribe.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
so that's kind of I still love the cards. I still love the angels. I still talk to my guides, but I have daddy there now. I have source.
Right.
You know, he's there. He's so present.
Well, look at it this way. You've tried a lot of things in your life, okay? And you've experienced a lot of things, but and you can't, you learn with each experience, no matter what it is, good or
Yeah.
bad, right? All right. But you tried tarot, you did readings, you did energy work, you did this, you did that. And that kind of set the foundation that you have these abilities. And maybe one wasn't feeling right to you. Well, now you're in the group, Smarties group,
Mm-hmm.
source directives, which is another word for God's plan. All right. So, and you're learning more and more, but now you have the support of good people. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully that will only accelerate where you're going to. And we don't really know where that is yet, do we? But
No,
it can only
somewhere
be
good.
good. It's
Somewhere
only
good.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
I'm
fact that
excited.
you're talking telepathically with your daughter is crazy awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's really
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah,
I'm seeing evidence in my everyday life as to the changes that are happening
yeah,
around the world, like
yeah,
frequency wise. I mean,
yeah,
my daughter, I was actually telling you the other day, my
yeah.
7-year-old daughter, Charlie Sue, she was telling me over the dinner table, right, just about a month ago, that she's been having these dream encounters with mantis beings
Right.
on a planet somewhere. And I never talk about mantis beings. Never once has she heard me talk about that. We do
Right.
talk about extraterrestrials a little bit, but
Yeah.
mantis being very specific.
Right.
And actually, Smarty ended up letting me know that it was that children are becoming more telepathic
Yes.
and they're in tuned and they're talking to beings off planet. They're doing a lot of
Right.
work.
Right.
So it's so interesting. And you know,
Yeah.
she wasn't sorry, excuse me, my neighbors are whippersnipping out there. I don't know if you can hear that. But you know, Sunday here, everyone gets out in their mowers. So yeah. So it's really interesting how children are definitely becoming
Yeah.
more attuned and more aware and more awake. And they're probably transitioning faster than us, you know, with
Oh,
their skills.
they don't
Yeah.
have the programs and the mental constructs that hold them back, right? They're
Yeah.
just experiencing, observing, and doing their thing. They don't, have the way we learned was the hard way, or at least me. And I had to learn things. I had to learn them on my own, right? There wasn't really resource at that time. And I look back and I'm like, dude, and then like my daughter comes along and she was that way, like as she was born, but I didn't fully understand that until she was older. And now my granddaughters are here. I already know they're telepathic. And I've had
Yeah.
conversations with them, which I don't remember, like long conversations. And I know we're talking, but I don't remember the details, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So that's cool, you
So
know.
exciting.
So hopefully we'll be working on some cool stuff together, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
think you will.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's gonna be cool. So yeah, it can only go up from here. The way I
That's
see it,
right.
it's like only going to get better, 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 you know. And now
Yeah.
you have a good supportive group, you have your
Yep.
foundation. It sounds like your home life is nice and stable and
It's
happy.
beautiful. Yeah,
It's
I'm with my guy, you know, he's
yeah,
amazing, so
yeah,
supportive and lovely. Even
yeah,
though he's not directly a part of Source Directives,
yeah,
he listens in, he loves that I'm into this, he's very supportive,
yeah,
and you know, that's all I can ask for at this point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you can you listen to a video or whatever and tell him about, oh, this such and such happened or this is going to happen, and
Yeah.
he'll at least listen to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And what he'll do is he'll actually, which is so funny because yesterday your interview with Tracy, she said a
yeah,
very similar thing, and I was like, that's kind of what we have, is
yeah.
that he'll be going down the same path, but he'll be
Right,
listening to a different source of information. So
right,
he'll be
right,
off on different YouTube channels or reading articles, and he'll come to the same conclusion that I'm coming
right,
to over here with, you know,
right,
Smarty and all his
right,
work. And well, it's similar, it always aligns, and we can always come together and
right.
you know, get excited about the same thing, you know? Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
cool.
So you're basically meshing information to make it a more fuller and more robust type
Yes.
of picture or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
great.
We get a lot of validation when we can
Yeah,
sort of do that together and get
yeah,
excited about the same things. You know,
yeah.
I know some people like it's really difficult. They haven't got anyone to talk to about these kinds of things, like
Right,
what's happening in the
right.
world,
Yeah,
you know, the amazing, incredible mysteries and just the wild stuff that we're talking about, like the ETs and all that. You know, I've got this person here that we have casual chats, like it's just normal. Like,
yeah,
oh, you know, I saw a UFO today. You know, oh, I saw a dragon out the back yesterday, you know, which I actually have. No
yeah.
joke.
Let's hear the story.
Third eye,
Yep.
not in the physical. Okay. So I
Okay.
was sitting down on my nursing chair in my lounge room, feeding my daughter. We have an open plan living space. So it's the lounge room connects to the kitchen, connects to the dining, which has a door that leads out to the back veranda. Back veranda door was open. I'm sitting on the nursing chair, looking out the door, kind of daydreaming as I'm, you know, feeding my baby. And next minute, I hear this like bang, and the floorboards shook. Like where I live, my little house, it was like a shake. And I saw with my mind's eye a dragon landed on. It was red. It was red, and it landed on like the railings of my back veranda. And I was like, holy whoa, whoa,
So
whoa,
cool.
whoa. Yeah, it was probably about a meter and a half, maybe 2 meters tall, meter and a half tall. It was kind of long. It kind of reminded me of one of those Chinese dragons, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's the best way I could describe it. And I sat there and I went, only love and light creatures, light beings can enter this home, only love and light, you know, and I'm like, done.
Right, right.
Next minute, jumps down off the railing, comes into the house, comes right up to my hand. I put my hand out. He sniffs it, rubs up against it, and I'm like, hey, little guy. And then he runs off. And then I asked
So
Source about it. He's like a guardian for Ada,
yeah.
I believe. Yeah.
So he was red. How did his skin feel or whatever?
It was
Like,
smooth,
yeah,
but it had the texture. Like it's what you would imagine, like it's similar to a crocodile, like crocodile leather, or
yeah. Okay.
if you've ever felt that.
Yeah, okay.
I felt the warmth and I felt the movement of his air when he breathed. Like it was so real to me. Of course, I looking with my eyes, you know, I couldn't
Yeah,
see. He was
yeah,
there.
yeah.
You know, so that was really really cool and
So cool.
crazy and wild. Yeah, because
Yeah,
I think what happens is once you get into Smarty stuff and his frequencies,
yeah,
especially the one with the big eye, you start seeing stuff with
yeah.
your third eye. You start really like I'd already seen things, but this was just like whoa, this is real. Like it's here. I'm seeing the other realms. I'm
Right.
seeing, you know, so that yeah, that's cool. I'm looking forward to even more of those experiences. Yeah.
I've seen animals that we don't have, like we don't have here on Earth. I've seen them, and I don't know what they are or whatever, but it's cool. you know?
Wild.
Like my cat has a little chair up by the window. We have a giant picture window here, and the cat sits in this little chair. So one night we're sitting there, and an animal jumps up to try to get my cat against the glass, which scared us. But it wasn't an animal that we have, and I don't know what it was. But like bizarre things happen. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I've seen shadows, I've seen good things, I've seen, we'll call them dark things, whatever. But it's so interesting. And the fact that you're able to talk about that is so exciting to me. And even with your kids, like you don't have to scare them or whatever, but to hear their opinions and all of that and the way they think about it and how they're expansive there, that's really exciting, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. They love it, especially my daughter Charlie. Like she's really, really open to it. She asked me about her spirit animals and she tells me she's got a wolf and she has names for these creatures and she sees them all the time and I validate her experiences with her,
Wow.
even if it is just to build her confidence
Yeah.
and not to ever shut out that beautiful creative
Yeah.
imagination. I do believe she is a lot of the time speaking truth
Yeah.
though. She
Yeah.
sees more than I do. I'm certain
Yeah.
of that. So yeah, it is really cool to share it with my children. Their father isn't very open to these things. He's very close-minded. He's
Yeah.
a book guy. He likes the
Yeah.
books and
Yeah.
the strict history and knowledge. So they come here and they have like these wild adventures and stories and they get to learn about things and I get to show them like images of ships like that we see, all kinds of things,
Right.
my son loves the portals, like he loves looking at the portals and people like
Yeah.
teleporting. He thinks that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So
And they're
yeah,
probably going to see that in their video games and their movies too. They're going to see that. So it's
sure.
kind of more acceptable where, again, that's really just come out in the past few years in movies or whatever, as much as it is,
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
cool. But I think having open conversation about that, it just leads them so they're not afraid. They're not afraid, like they're more discerning. So
That's
they'll
right.
sense whether it's, let's say, positive or negative,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's very cool. I always taught my daughter about angels. Like if you're ever feeling, afraid or whatever, call an Archangel Michael. And she has done that, as have I in the
That's
past.
my statue,
Yes,
Archangel
I saw
Michael over
that. Yeah,
there.
yeah. Just call in Archangel Michael and ask
Yeah.
him to help you. And she's done it before, because we've had unusual experiences. And of course, I have the blog site. I've only written about maybe a third of my experiences so far.
Yeah.
So I've had some weird things happen. It's really just remembering them and then actually taking the time to sit down and write them.
Isn't it crazy? Because sometimes you'll just be laying there and something will remind you of, and like, holy moly, that happened. I
Yeah,
remember that was wild. And you're like,
yeah.
wow, I really
How
need to
could I
write this
forget
down.
it? Yeah. Like the other day I'm walking around, I'm like, oh, this happened a week ago. And I'm like, why haven't I been thinking about it? Like, why did I, forget it? It's so
Yeah.
weird.
Sometimes I
Yeah.
guess there's a reason, like
Yeah.
something's supposed to settle in or this
Yeah.
download you're supposed to get or
Yeah.
something to, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I don't know. So it sounds like you're in a very good space. You're awakened. You're on the right path. Um, if someone new were watching this, could you give them any tips for awakening without like maybe the hardship that you went through? And of course, at
Yeah.
that, I mean, you have to do what you have to do. Everyone's
Yeah.
different. And, like I said, you learned so much from it. And, but like, if we wanted to fast track someone's awakening, do you have any tips for them or things that they could try or do?
Yeah, I do. I do. So first of all, learn from your mistakes. You don't need to do things again and again and again just to get to the same conclusion, okay? Some people are fast learners, some people are slow. Um, that's one of my first things I would say is actually really get in tune to with like you don't always need to know the exact answers as to why something bad happened in your life,
Right.
but you do need to set yourself in a direction of how can I overcome this? How can I prevent this from happening again?
Right.
How can I move forward? Um, into a better state of living, more joy and more love in my life. So I would
Right.
always ask someone in a bad situation not to sit there and dwell, not to allow things to continue happening to them because nothing happens to you, happens for you, right?
Right.
Right. So definitely push past that and get some changes happening in your life because
Right.
these changes will put you in another direction. The other thing I would say is Kids, stay away from drugs. No. Yes, but no, I would say that you probably would really, really benefit from getting onto Smarty's like videos, like joining the Telegram groups, getting to know the Jedi, watching all of his stuff, deep diving into anything that brings joy and happiness into your life, whether it be creative, like through music, whether it be through art, whether it be through nature, just deep dive into it,
Right,
you know,
right,
get the joy, and start questioning things. Start
right,
questioning things.
right.
A lot of us are just willing to sit back. Well, some of us have sort of just
Not
been
so
willing to
much.
sit back and accept this is our reality. It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's some of the things I recommend. Obviously, like yoga, meditation, like,
Right.
working with crystals. Like, there are so many things that you can do. Eating healthy, laying off the alcohol if that's something you're inclined to do,
Right.
talking to people and mingling with like-minded people is really big. And that's something I kind of pushed to the side for a while, a bit of a lone soldier.
Yeah.
So because I lost a lot of friends when I left my husband. So having people that align with you, have similar interests, that's really important
Right.
to, I guess, that back and forth can really grow and build on a concept or an idea, and it can establish more confidence and validation
Right.
in whatever it is you're discussing, whether it be extraterrestrials, whether it be, source, daddy, whether it be
Right.
frequency, whatever, manifestation. You need
Right.
to surround yourself with people who can foster and really help you on your path and
Right.
not put a big wall between you and the
Right.
thing you're interested in,
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
I'd
first of
advise.
all, there's a support system that you have now with Jacob and now the Jedis. Okay, so you have support. So if you
Yeah.
have a problem or a weird thing happen, you can ask questions,
Yeah.
or hey, I need this. Okay, and some people will help you, but sometimes a trusted group, will keep you accountable. Okay, I want to do this.
Yes.
And a trusted friend, and I say trusted a lot because a lot of them are jealous and will try to sabotage you, but the trusted friends will help you. Hey, I thought you were going to do this, and did you do it yet? And I mean,
Yeah.
my world, a good friend will kind of call a friend out if they're not doing what they say they want to do. And,
Yeah.
or if they're supposed to be doing something, hey, don't forget this, I'm not nagging you, but if you want to do it, I'll help you. And if you don't want
Yeah.
to do it, let's just be friends.
That's right.
So,
Because I mean, well, we all want to see everyone reach their highest potential, be the
right,
best version of themselves. We want
right,
to see them empowered. We want to see them grow
right,
in confidence and love for themselves because
right.
of taking positive actions in their life. So absolutely, you need to call people out. You need to be that kind of tough love sometimes,
Yeah.
and having people in your life that are willing to do that, in a loving way,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
loving way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's valuable.
it is
Yeah.
valuable. Like, an outsider can see the pattern. Okay, let's say I'm helping you where we're friends. I see the pattern that you're repeating and you're not getting the lesson and blah, 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 blah. Now, are you going to get the lesson if I tell it to you? Probably not. You need those experiences, but sometimes a friend will say, hey, they can tweak it a little bit so you can get it faster or whatever. And, I try to do that for my friends when it's appropriate. Like, I have a lot of what I'll call mainstream friends at this point. So we're just social. We don't talk about anything deep. And if I tell them, I'll tell them stuff, and they literally will just go deer in the headlights and not.
Yeah.
Then I'll drip something out, and they'll just like, and they don't
Yeah.
even ask a question. So I back
Yeah.
off. I'm not shoving anything down anyone's throat anymore
No,
because that doesn't
no.
get you anywhere, right?
It doesn't. It doesn't. It
Yeah,
just, if anything, it just puts barriers up between you and the people you
yeah,
love. Like
yeah,
family members, I experience the same thing. I'm
yeah,
gentle drip feeding as well right now with
yeah,
some of my family
yeah,
and loved ones because
yeah,
that approach of just this is the way it is, and shell shock, like, because there's some
right.
crazy shit going on. Like not everyone's ready for that.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
everyone's ready for that shit, whereas
yeah,
us, we're kind of strong, we're kind of there, we've had
yeah,
time to let it all in. These people, a lot of them have been just in their little bubble of a world for so long, believing the programming, believing
yeah,
that this is all there is, and they've become submissive to that fact,
right,
submissive to that reality. And so it just takes a gentle nudge with a bit of confidence, a bit of love in
Right.
there, you know,
Right.
to get them over the
Yeah.
line. They'll get there, you know, we're all going
Yeah.
to get there,
Yeah.
all of us. So,
Yes, it'll be interesting, that's for sure. Like the next few months, it'll be so interesting to see how, like, all of this comes out into the news, all that what's been happening and all that, and how people react.
yeah.
And I know in Australia, you've had a lot more lockdown and more trouble. I mean, like, I actually have felt pretty free where I live. I've run around without a mask and without all that. Like I don't listen
Yeah.
to the rules, and I'm able to get away with it. But in some places you haven't been able to, and that must have been so difficult. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It was rough. I mean, I have to say in Brisbane, we didn't have it as hard as
yeah,
Melbourne, Western
yeah,
Australia, and
yeah,
Sydney. They had it really, really bad.
yeah.
But you know, yeah, it was tough. Even now, we have
Mm,
to wear masks to the doctors.
yeah,
I had to get vaccinated to have my child at the hospital.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and my partner
awesome.
couldn't be there for the birth if he
Yeah,
wasn't vaccinated.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was really bad. They told me my child would die, that I would miscarry or have a stillbirth if I didn't, and I caught COVID. So that was the situation I was put in personally, which
Right.
I put it off for 2 years. I put off the vaccine. I hated the idea. I shouldn't even say that, should I? We can always mute that out.
You can say whatever you want.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, like put it off. We knew this wasn't something. We knew something was up. We
Yeah,
knew it in our hearts, and we put it off, put it off, put it off, and then you know it came down to it, and it was like, well, here are choices. I have complications with my pregnancy, gestational diabetes, among other things, cord wrapped around the neck. I need to get into a hospital,
yeah.
and my GP basically telling me I'm going to be a terrible mom, and it's going to be my fault if I
Wow.
lose my child if I don't get it. And I'd had a miscarriage previously to the pregnancy, yeah. So
Right.
that you know really hit an emotional
Yeah.
mother's
Yeah.
hormones pretty
Of
hard to think that
course.
I could
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, we
So,
have had it rough. Mandates have
yeah.
been tough. People have had to get them for their work to keep their jobs. People have
Right.
had to get them to go to different places like health facilities. It's been wild. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Yeah. I'm sad about that because a lot of my family, I went back home for a couple weeks last summer, and most of them were vaccinated, and they're all good. They're good people.
yeah,
And I asked them individually, quietly, and why I didn't do it like that. I was like, well, why? And most of them didn't want to do it, but they had to work, and they
yeah,
were forced to keep their jobs.
yeah, which
And
is
that
so
just makes,
unfair.
and I was like, well, could you consider a different job? But and it's done.
Yeah,
So
it's done.
I feel I've been feeling very anxious for them because I want to help them, of course.
Yeah, I've been feeling anxious for my loved ones as well. They're all some of them are up to like their third or fourth booster shots.
Mm,
Yeah, I can't seem to get through to them. My own children, to my ex-husband, they have been vaccinated twice.
right.
He insisted. I said, no, I'm not for it. But it didn't matter. You know, he did what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's scary. But I do talk to Source about it, and I know
Right.
he's doing his best to protect everyone.
Yeah.
And I know that the people we do lose will be coming back, and we will
Yeah.
see them
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really excited about that. And,
me
I'm
too.
excited about, us being able to heal the people that have the injury, no matter what it is. And even like I'll go down to the grocery store and I see people like they can't even walk upright. They're bent over and they've and I work on healing them while I'm walking around, but I don't always have my wand with me. A lot of times I forget it, but like I'll just touch my charm and like ask for full and complete healing for that person. I don't know
Yeah.
what their issues are and all that, but I a lot of times I'm just bebopping around and I'll try to work on people. So yeah.
Yeah, I do it too now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's fun. You know, because you really do notice it more and more. The people that are in pain, that are suffering, like the homeless people as well. I can't walk past them. I actually went and there's a gentleman down in the park behind my house that I noticed a few weeks back, and Source told me take him food, and I charged the food.
Mm.
I actually got that idea from another Jedi. I think his name's
Right.
Brandon.
Brandon.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He does great work for the
Does
homeless, and
amazing
so
work.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I know what to do. I know what to
Yeah,
do. And I took him like a whole bunch of food, toilet paper, all kinds of things
yeah,
that he might need. And I charged it with love, light, frequency, healing, mental clarity, all
right.
the things, abundance, strength to get through this time, because I know it's the end of the hard time, but these people, like, they don't know it. They don't know it yet. And I just want him to make it through.
Right. So
Yeah.
you can help them. Yeah, I had a homeless person in the spring. I decided to bring him food every single day. So I did. And then I started to travel and I got out of that routine. Then I didn't see him there. And now it's cold. So I did
Yeah.
see him walking around about a week ago. So I had a brand new wool scarf I left where he kind of sleeps. I left it there for him to find, because it's right now it's cold at night, like really cold. So yeah,
It's horrible to think
I
that people
know.
are enduring this,
Yeah,
they've just been forgotten about.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we
But
are
that's
really
why, yeah.
super, super lucky. We're way off topic here.
We don't know what happened. I probably should go soon anyway, Sue. My little ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all that you've been through, and I appreciate getting to know you better and that you're part of our group. I'm so excited about that. So hopefully we'll be meeting very soon on the beach. Would that be
Yes.
great?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sue. It's been a
Thank
great
you.
experience. And you know what? It's been really healing for me speaking to you about this stuff. So,
Yeah.
and getting my story out there for others who may benefit from it. So I appreciate what
Thank
you're
you.
doing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful work.
Wow. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.